Welcome to the very first Berkeley Behind the Bait. And from Bait Development, we have Dan Spengler. And from a hardcore cranking fool, we have Chris Brown with us. And we're going to talk about the Berkeley Dime, a bait that I am quickly falling in love with. But how does this whole process start, Dan?
Oh man, that's a very almost loaded question, right? So it's a very, very detailed project in process, right? So when we're designing crankbaits, really we start from the initial concept phase, right? Before we even design the bait, we want to know, hey, what do we want the bait to be? We knew we wanted this to be a better than balsa crankbait in that family. It's been very popular with the frit side. And breaking the balsa code in a crankbait, let me tell you, was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever been a part of working on here. It took me about a good part of 10 years to actually develop a line of hard baits that actually could break the balsa code in plastic, because plastic is, let's just be honest, it's a heavier material.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that action and that feel that balsa crankbaits have. And a lot of guys want that balsa action because it's just one of those actions that guys know, they trust, they believe in, and heck, it's caught a lot of fish, won a lot of tournaments. So here at Berkeley, in our labs, in our research facility, we set forth a path to break the balsa code in crankbaits, and that's just continuing with the new Berkeley Dime.
So how does it start? So you say, okay, we want to bait. I mean, it's, to me as an angler, it seems simple that you want it to be better than balsa, because balsa's great. The problem with it's inconsistent. They're not all balsa baits are created the same. So
Yep.
Where does step one in designing this bait start?
So essentially it starts with a concept drawing, and we'll review the competitor landscape of the market like we do with any bait and try to understand what's out there. And then essentially I started working on the design of the crankbait. Obviously we wanted it to be a shad profile crankbait. We just did the kind of the crawfish pattern with the money badger. So this is gonna be like a nice complement. Now you got that shad crankbait better than balsa action crankbait. So when we designed the bait and started, we worked with the body design, and then obviously you have to have the right bill, the pull point position, all these things in combination. Those are really the things that drive the action of a bait. So once we got the body shape, then we laid the platform for the bill shape. So I'll just show you right here. Here we have the dime. This is actually the Dime 10. In this particular bait, like I mentioned, it has a rounded lip for deflecting off the rocks and structure. Kind of gives you that classic crankbait wobble. This is kind of a medium tight action crankbait, the 10. And then we have a 15. Those are kind of those tighter action baits that dive deeper in the water column, summertime fishing. And then we actually have a 6 and a 4. And these have a harder, more aggressive action. So when you see these baits, we had to actually look at the bill angle, and we have a steeper designed bill angle. So it's going to have a harder thump, kind of more of that in between action between that tight action and that kind of harder crawfish action. And when the smaller baits, we want them to cast. So when we're thinking about this bait, not only did we want the better than balsa technology, you see the flash disc right there, paired with a thin kind of shell body to get that balsa action, but you can see a weight transfer. So in the 4 and the 6, we have a weight transfer. And I'm telling you, these things with that kind of that lower bill angle, these things cast better than any crankbait of their given size on the market today. I mean, we cast and test a lot of different baits, and these are just truly amazing in their castability. So we wanted it to, number one, have the action, that balsa action. So we built that in the bait with the flash disc technology. And then we worked down the path of the castability side. The larger baits, they don't have that. Obviously, the bulk here of the bait, it's all driven with the flash disc technology. No need for weight transfer on these big baits. Cast a mile. Yeah. Obviously, they get to the depth markers that you want them to hit, but a lot of design iterations. There's a lot of places we can go, but I'll keep it very simple. I have 5 tackle boxes behind me. Here's one of them, right? And I just kind of wrote a nice little sheet of what it took to get or break the balsa code in each one of these and approve them. So if you look at them, here's a bait box of crankbaits, a bunch of black crankbaits, right? These are all lab built baits. I had to build each bait by hand. Then I had to go back in the lab. We have a casting tank that's 60 feet long. 6 feet across, 13.5 feet deep, where I get the general angler perspective of the bait. Like, hey, I'm sitting on the bow of the boat cranking this thing. Does it track straight? Does it have the right buoyancy? All those things. And once we get that kind of finalized, because a lot of these baits, they're real touchy and you reel them quick with any speed. I wanted this bait to be able to run at a very high speed for a reaction bite, stop and burn, pick it up and let it go. And they would blow out. So it took over 78 different versions just to approve the 10, break the Balsa code, get it to track and be able to burn that bait. And once we were good in the actual casting tank, we went to the flow tank. This is cool. It's where we put the bait in kind of a static single position in the tank, and water flows at a standard rate. Everything's standard. It's all very scientific and standardized process. And we let that bait just move in the tank, and we analyze all the different actions, whether it's the tail swing, how the bait rolls, what it looks like from the top and the bottom. And I did that with every single bait, all 140 to build the whole Dime family. 140 prototypes to build 4 sizes, a 4, a 6, a 10, and a 15.
Wow.
Once we got that all figured out, we let, when we had a lot of pro insight, Chris was giving us feedback on prototypes. Once we got confident in the final bait of every size, we took them to our oval racetrack. This is cool. It's where the science is here at Berkeley Labs, right? We actually have fish in 5 fish per treatment, lots of replications. It's all scientific. We let the fish out of their cage. They're acclimated. They're pelleted or fed pellet reared fish their whole entire life. Never seen a bait. No live bait, no live bait. So we let them non-biasedly select the prey item, right? So we can run competitor baits. We can run our baits, our prototypes in the tank, and let the fish tell us what they prefer. Now, once and they'll pick by the number of strikes, the strike response, what they favor. And even in individual prototypes, like I've submitted a various number of prototypes, we let them pick the best one, and then we go to the field with the best one, and we'll go head to head against, maybe it's our own prototypes, what's the best, maybe it's a top competitor in the field, and we let the fish have the final say who wins. And either we go back to the drawing board, or if we're good, we let the product launch. And Chris was a part of that process at the last stages of the process, where we're letting the fish tell us, and we're letting our pros and our regional guys and all that tell us the story. Does the bait work for you? And that's kind of set the stage for what Chris ended up doing. So Chris, if I'd say you were there for some of the early designs and prototypes, what's some of your experiences with the Dime?
Actually the first one that I had any experience with was a 6. That was the one that I was able to pick up earliest. I had a 4, but actually the first Dime 4 I had was one of the earlier prototypes. And the first really finished one I had was a 6. And the first thing I noticed about it, the most important thing to me when it comes to throwing a crankbait is you got to be able to cast it. If you can't throw it far enough,
right,
you got to be able to throw it. If you can't, because there's so many variables that go into what controls the depth of a crankbait, line size, rod angle. But the most important thing is being able to throw it. And the first time I threw the 6, which was the first one that I was just amazed at how far I could throw it. I mean, I launched it. I mean, obviously I use a winch rod and a winch reel, and when I went to throw it, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just couldn't get over how far I could throw it. And obviously when you can throw one that far, you're going to hit your depth, very easily. And actually you can throw it so far, actually it will, especially with a 6, it actually will run a little bit deeper, than what it says than what you think it will, just because you can throw it so far. And actually the first time I used it was at a local tournament here at Lake Norman, and I actually did pretty good. I actually caught enough fish on the 6 that day to finish 3rd. I had a nice healthy mix of spotted bass and largemouth, and it's just a tight wiggle, the way you could throw it, and it deflected. One of the things that I think, with a rare exception when you're around schooling fish and stuff like that, me personally, I get very few bites that I think are actually feeding bites. Most of the bites that I get, I think are are reaction bites. And one of the best ways to get a reaction bite is deflect a bait off of something. And I'm a crankbait fisherman. That's just one of those things that I like to do. And there's several different ways you can do it. You can hit a rock or you can hit a stump. I don't have a lot of grass in my lakes, but I know, you can use a crankbait and wind it down into the grass and rip it out and get a reaction strike like that. And like I said, one of the best ways to do that is to take a crankbait and deflect it off of something. And that was one of the things that the Dime deflected as good as. You really done a good job, Dan, when it come to unlocking the Balsa code. I was amazed at how good these baits work when I first got them. And like I said, the 6 was the first one that I had. I got some of the 4s too, but I kind of got the 4s on the tail end of our bite here. But I've actually caught some fish it's starting to get fall here just a little bit in central North Carolina, and the crankbait bait's kind of starting to pick up a little bit. But I was just amazed at how far you could throw it, how true it ran, and then when it hit cover, it hits and deflects. And to me, that's just one of the best. That's just one of the best ways to get a bite is to get a reaction strike.
Right. Actually, it's really cool that you're talking about that because I think about that too. I'm a crankbait guy. I've actually built crankbaits for several years just as a hobby, a side hobby before I came to work for Berkeley.
What a weirdo. What a
I
weird.
know,
Look,
man.
I'm going to go home and do my job for a hobby.
You know what? I've been. Yeah, go ahead.
Dan's one of the few guys I've ever met that shares the passion for crankbait fishing as much as I do. Because I caught my first bass on a crankbait when I was 7 years ago, and take my word for it, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, you said that during the field test, and that meant a lot to me to just a guy who's so avid as a crankbait angler to kind of put your stamp of approval and like, man, this thing it meets all the expectations I have for a balsa crankbait, but yet we built it in plastic. And some of the cool things about it, I mean, look at this color right here. It's a ghost bluegill color.
Ghost gill.
We have a lot of ghost colors. We have ghost craw colors. And not only are we breaking the balsa code and providing that action that's proven in this bait, but we're bringing it in translucent colors, which you don't have in the market today. And I've analyzed a lot of baits through my years here. I've been with the company for going on 13 years. And I can tell you, I mean, people say, hey, this has got balsa-like action. No, they really don't. It hundreds and hundreds of baits, maybe even up into the thousands I've looked at in my career here, analyzing them with slow motion video. They don't have balsa action. So to do this, and we did so with a scientific process, step by step. I mean, 140 prototypes just to get 4 baits on the shelf. I don't think there's anybody else in the company or anybody else in the world doing that level of bait detail and design and prototyping to get to that just for action and performance of a bait. And that's what I think really sets the bar with these better than balsa crankbaits like we have with the Dime and what we can do with it, because we truly did break the balsa code. And it's showing in the fish's response to it. But when you talk about the bait getting down quick and deflecting off rocks, I love that because that's how I fish crankbaits. I am a reaction bite guy. I firmly believe you got to get the bait down there as quick as possible to deflect off the structure to get more bites. So we did up the ante with this bait a little bit, and it does have a little bit wider profile bill, so it hits that depth quicker. It's easy to hit that targeted or marketed depth, so you get a little +1 with the baits.
It dives very quick. I mean, and it does hit its target depth very quick.
So it's definitely checked all the boxes. I mean, it's better than balsa because it's consistent. It's better than balsa in color because obviously you're making colors that are impossible to make in balsa. Give me one sneaky little trick though, Chris. What is like people want to catch more fish in a crankbait. If I buy a Dime and go fishing, how do I want to fish it?
Well, like I said earlier, there's a lot of variables that control, everything that goes to a crankbait. The most important thing I can say is to use it on. I try to use it. Well, there's differences, between like a shallow running crankbait and a deep running crankbait. On a deep running crankbait, I try to use as light a line as I can get away with. A, I can throw it further. B, it will dive a little bit deeper than what the Dime 15. I used the Dime 15, and Dan will tell you this. I had a pretty good little stretch there in July where I won several tournaments here in North Carolina, and I did it all on the Dime 15. And I mean, but I was throwing it on 10-pound fluorocarbon, which is very light for throwing a bait that size. But the reason I was throwing it on that 10-pound fluorocarbon was the fish were anywhere from 14 to 17 foot deep. And with that 10-pound fluorocarbon, I could hit that little bit deeper range with that plug, and fish were just really schooled up. And it was one of those deals where when you got one to bite, it was throw back as fast as you can, and it was every cast. I fished one little Monday evening tournament on High Rock Lake. The tournament, now this is no joke. The tournament started at 6 o'clock. We fished from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's one of those little evening deals where it's winner take all. I made my first cast at 6:04, and the tournament was over at 6:15, and every one of them was on the dime 15.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was, that was for the deeper bait. It was just to use as light a line as I could get away with.
That's pretty awesome, man. I didn't even put together that full story when you sent me. He just sends me pictures of the dime next to $100 bills. That's what I like to do. Send me those anytime you want.
That's the truth. That particular one, I won 3 of those in a row. But that one, first cast 6:04, tournament was over. It was either 6:14 or 6:15. I can't remember. But I caught like 9 in a row. Nine in a row. You know, and I mean, you have to stop when you get 5 because you can't have more than 5 in your live well. You know, so I caught 9 in a row. A couple of them wouldn't help me, and then I had to look at the other ones, and I was like, I don't think that's as big as one as I got either. And I just tossed in as well. And then finally I had to go back. I was like, man, I got to cull some of these fish. Wow. That was all on the 15. It was there was about a 4-week stretch there where it was, you know, I needed 2 rods on the boat. I had 2 dime 15s tied on, one of each. You know, I was catching them on the river brim and on the citrus shad, which are those are just notorious colors for my part. Really not really here in North Carolina, but in Virginia and South Carolina as well. But I got those. When Brad sent me that, I shot him a text. I'm like, Brad, I need some 15s. I don't have any. And I got them just at the right time. You know, and I got them out, and I didn't have to. Another thing, too, about the dime that I've noticed, you don't have to tune any of them. They all run straight right out of the pack. I mean, you know, I may have had to tweak one just a little bit, but I think it's after you know, 'cause a lot of times you'll wear the bill down on a plug a little bit if you use it a lot, especially a shallow bait, if you grind it across, you know, if you're grinding it across rocks, if you're fishing a lot of riprap and stuff like that. And you may, you know, the eye on it will, you know, get knocked off a little bit, but they've all run straight right out of the pack. Another thing I want to add too is the hooks that they come with in the pack, you don't have to do anything to it. All you have to do is tie it on and throw it. It has a Fusion, it comes with a Fusion 19 hook on it. And I can probably count on one hand in 4 or 5 weeks the fish that I've lost, and a couple of them were my fault. I get them close to the boat and they come off the side of the boat. But I mean, that Fusion 19 hook that comes on that, you don't have to do anything to it. You know, when you just tie it on straight out of the package and you just go fishing with it. And another thing you can touch on that I want to touch on too is the things you can do with these baits is kind of like what you said earlier that you can't do with balsa. You know, balsa baits, they're really good, but they're not durable. You know, they have a tendency to wear out very quickly. Whereas I've got one, I actually have got it. It's laying right here somewhere, but a couple of ones that I did so good on the summertime with, I mean, I caught so many fish on them. I mean, they're wore out, but they're still, you know, it's not like a balsa bait. You know, eventually it just wears out and it'll just eventually come apart on you. Whereas these plastic baits do not do that.
Well, one thing while we were field testing this, I made it a point to always smack this bait hard on the water and look for things such as your bill break, right? How many times do you take the bait, slap some weeds off? Oh, there's just a bill left on it. And I bet I slapped, I mean, we fished for days and days field testing this bait and not only trying to see if we would win head to head with the fish, but durability and castability and all these things, and never broke a bill. You know, I did hook myself. I did get a Fusion 19 past the bend. And, you know, I think I've set the record having worked here in fishing. I'm an avid angler too, my whole life. So I probably have the record for the number of Fusion 19 hooks that have impaled my body past the barb and into the bend.
Wow. That's quite a record.
You know, another thing too is the one thing about the plastic baits is the colors that you can do. And you can actually touch the plastic baits up. Like if they kind of start wearing on the sides, you can take like a marker and just touch them up and color it.
Yeah, and we got over 20 different colors. You know, we got a lot of different colors, you know, everything from super realistic, this kind of matte brown craw. We got the clear colors, clear craws, ghost kind of shad colors, like this pixie dust color right here is a really cool one, kind of a metallic shad. So I think there's going to be 21 colors. We were originally targeting 20, and we snuck in, I think it was blue chartreuse by demand of the pros at the end. We had to sneak an odd number in there. So there'll be a lot of colors to cover every situation that you'll run into, whether you fish it in the north, the south, the east, the west, what time of year. We got you covered with the dime.
Chris, what's your favorite color?
Actually, my favorite color is, well, actually color is kind of relative to the conditions. For here in North Carolina, this is my favorite one. This is the River Brim. It's got a little chartreuse on the side, a little green in the back, and it's got a brown back, a little green on the shoulders, and it's got a brown back. But believe it or not, we have no blue herring in any of the lakes in North Carolina. And back in June, I was just smoking them on the tin, on the blueback herring tin. Go figure. Who knows? I've been trying to figure these crazy fish out for 40 years. I ain't been able to figure it out yet. But my favorite color in this part of North Carolina is this one right here. This is the River Brim color. And it's like I said, for whatever reason, all the lakes here, Virginia and South Carolina, this color has always been a really good color. Clear water, dirty water, it doesn't matter. But if you had to pin me down to one, that's my favorite one right there. But like I said, I like the blueback herring's really good too. Like I said, we don't have any blue herring in our lakes, so go figure.
Well, it doesn't matter what you think. It's really up to the fish, and
that's
they
exactly
clearly,
right.
You give them what they want. Said,
color is all, in dirtier water, obviously, you want to use that, and clearer water, you want to use more light. One of the colors that I really like that I think is going to be a player this fall is the Ghost Morning Dawn. That's right there. That's the 4, because, just simply fish get on such a shad bite in the fall, and especially somewhere like Lake Norman, where Lake Norman is just a really clear lake, and that's where a lot of my fall tournaments are at. And I actually think that one right there is probably going to be the one that I catch as many on this fall as I do anything else. I really like that one too.
Every time we run field test samples, that's my first color I put in the bait.
The Ghost Morning Dawn. Yeah.
Yep. Catches them everywhere.
It does, because I catch a lot of fish on the, on the square bull in that color as well too.
Right.
Dan, hearing stuff like this must get you all excited. I mean, you hear somebody that's that excited about a product that literally started on a piece of paper at one point. Right. It's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. And to be honest, when you develop 140 different prototypes to kind of put a capstone, I think this is probably collectively the most happy or most proud I am of us and our team of developing a crankbait at Berkeley with the better than balsa action. It just kind of solidifies that, I think we've really taken a leap and bound into the world of hard baits. We've come out with the Stunna, the Money Badger, Fritz side. And I really think this is the next evolution of our crankbaits here at Berkeley. Just being able to put the technology and the design intent into the bait, and all the way from seeing it from the concept to the initial prototypes, the ground up to the shelf, which is coming on the shelf this fall. It's a really cool experience and feeling for a design guy like myself. I tell you what, I mean, it was a painful process. The guys here at work, they could all, I mean, they were all here, and I said, I don't know. I mean, I beat myself up trying to get the bait right, the prototype, the action right. And to get to like 78 on the 10, I thought I was never going to get there. And actually 78 wasn't the final prototype. It was 68. 68 was the one that actually was good. But after 68, it was good. I just kept going and going. And eventually I noticed that I couldn't get any further. I couldn't make it any better than what it was. And then we let the fish tell us, and they said 68 was the deal.
That's some cool stuff. And I got to thank you, Dan and Chris, for doing this with me. But that is the Berkeley Dime, and that is Berkeley behind the bait.